Hello, travel biz owner. Welcome to my corner of the travel industry, the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. If you're ready to have fun, be inspired, get clarity, and take action in your travel business, then you're in the right place. Let's jump in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am so excited to have you here. This is actually my last-ish live podcast before I go on surgery leave. So I know many of you are on the email list or you've been following me on social media, but just a heads up, I will be going into surgery and into recovery from September 3rd through September 14th. I should be back in the office September 15th. So if you don't hear any emails from me, any email responses, that's most likely why. I'm sure during recovery I'll be a little bit bored. So you may see me like chatting with you on social media, but do not take that as me working. This is just being social and keeping my mind active. So here is your hello, this is your announcement. I will be out of office and not working so that I can help my body heal during this time. So got that out of the way. The next couple of episodes, and why I say it's kind of like the last live podcast episode for a while, is because we're going to showcase some of our previous Prep for Wave Week episodes the whole month of September. So you're going to get in on some of the good. So if you attended last year, you're going to get a great refresher again for this year. And if you've never attended before, you're going to get a really great taste of what to expect at Prep for Wave Week happening later in September, which, by the way, if you haven't signed up, make sure to go ahead and save your spot. Be one of the hundreds of people that we have joining us online September 22nd through the 26th. But without further ado, I did mention that I had a special guest with us this week, and that is Mitch from the Tourpreneur podcast. And we're kind of like really great counterparts because he teaches a lot on business and educates and brings special guests that teach a lot about business for tour operators. And I do the same that for you here as travel advisors. So huge welcome, Mitch from Trip School and Tourpreneur.
Rita, thank you. I'm so honored to be your last pre-op guest.
Yeah.
Although maybe I would have been excited to also meet with you post-op when you're on those pain meds and we would have had a loopy conversation. That could have been fun.
I am so interested to see how that's gonna go. I have a friend who I've seen her on some of the loopy meds, and she has fun like I think she talked about Santa Claus one of the last times she came out of post-op. So I'm not sure if I'm one of those people, but I'll let my mom tell me after surgery.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so how did you get into our wonderful travel industry and then also doing what you're doing to support the tour operator side of things?
Well, when I work with a new tour business, usually my first question that I ask them is, what life crisis brought you into this industry? And it's because tour operator, tour guide, tour leader, this kind of world that I live in is not really a world that is the result of a career quiz. It's not
Uh-huh.
something that you dream of when you're 8 years old. Mommy, when I grow up, I want to lead hiking tours through the national parks.
Right.
So for me, it was a job during college, and I was studying for my PhD in philosophy. Was living in Paris.
Wow.
Spent all of my 20s in Paris, France. I was like a wayward little son in the middle of Wisconsin. I decided I was going to get out and see the world at the
Mhm.
age of almost 18, and I moved to New Zealand. Ended up in France, ended up going to college there, and I thought I was going to be a philosophy professor. That was somehow my dream. And during the studies, I was a tour operator, I was a tour guide, I was a multi-day trip leader or a tour director, taking
Uh-huh.
groups around. And I just loved being out in the world. I loved connecting with people. I loved storytelling. I loved researching place. I loved bringing it all together and designing
Mhm.
really unique experiences. Anyway, everything that I thought was a side act in my life, it turned out it was the thing that I loved. And after I decided I did not want to be cooped up in an academic studying in a classroom for the rest of my life, I turned to tourism, and that sort of set me on my path forever.
Nice. I love how you also mentioned like the accidentalness because I feel it's accurate. When we grow up, we think about like being vets or pilots or accountants, like the traditional roles. And it's not, I don't think it was until high school because I did my bachelor's degree in hospitality management, and that's kind of what opened the doors. But even then, like hospitality management, it's mostly hotels and restaurants. Nobody really talks about the tourism side outside of theme parks, especially I went to the University of Central Florida. I'm in Orlando. Theme parks are a huge thing here. So this whole like tour and travel side was a different avenue.
Yeah, it just shocks me that we have these academic programs all around the world,
Mhm.
and none of them really either train you or even bring up these careers that are so immersive in the world.
Yeah.
Do you want to be a travel experience designer? Do
Yeah.
you want to be a place-based storyteller and travel around the world, unlocking the beauty of the world for people?
Yeah.
I think some people would be excited about that. And usually the people that I meet, it's their second or third or fourth career, or they only discover it younger because they knew somebody and somebody recommends it, and it kind of travels word of mouth. So I'm a little bit on a mission to establish real education, real community, and real presence in the world for these careers and get more people into our job.
Yes, I love that so much. And I keep thinking about like, what is the primary difference between what a travel advisor does and what a tour operator does? And like I wrote down and I'm envisioning like I feel like the travel advisor is an expert on people, whereas a tour operator might be an expert on the location. But I feel like there's definitely high crossover when it comes to that. So let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think there is an easy answer anymore, especially, I think there are these stereotypes of both of our professions. I
Mhm.
can say there's the stereotype that a travel advisor doesn't travel, they sit at home and they basically have a group of friends or a group of clients, and then they book package tours for them. They book them on a Disney cruise, or they book them on a Globus group tour,
Yeah.
or whatever it might be, and then they rake in a little commission. They might book some flights, book some tickets to things as well. They have an IATA number, and that's and it's good side money. And for tour operators, I think they're the people that are out in the world. They're the
Mhm.
people that are crafting experiences either locally where they live, or as kind of outbound tour operators taking groups of people on trips anywhere else around the world. But they've got their hands in the operations, the vendor relationships with the actual restaurants, and it's like more of a direct relationship with a lot of these vendors, and then piecing things
Yeah.
together, building tours and products to sell to people like travel advisors. Now,
Right.
I I bring those up because I think those sorts of stereotypes just don't make any sense anymore. And the lines are blurring, and
Oh
the
yeah.
old categories of an inbound or outbound tour operator, day versus multi-day, receptive, DMC, these are words that have lived in our industry for decades.
Mhm.
And I mean, I live with those words every single day. I'm supposed to be the one educating people, and I know less and less what they mean.
I'm glad that you said that because I do some work within the industry and I've heard the terms inbound and outbound and I'm like, but what really is the difference? You're helping people experience something, and I appreciate that you mentioned the word experience because I feel like that's what the difference is, where a travel or part of the difference is that a travel advisor helps you craft the experience where an operator makes it come to life for you. And I know that there's different types of operators because you mentioned there's DMCs, then there's like the boutique operators. So can we also get a lay of the land of when a travel advisor is looking to find an experience for their clients, who are some of the types of people that they're going to be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because I think an advisor really needs to understand who their client is, what they're looking for,
Right.
and then start to get a little creative about finding these people. So I I I, I know a lot of advisors, and I host a conference every year where advisors come into our conference and do education. They talk about kind of what an advisor's process is for
Uh-huh.
booking something for a client.
Mhm.
And it's often really eye-opening for my community of tour operators because they're
Okay.
often not clear on what an advisor is doing to discover a tour
Okay.
operator. So let me break down like the food groups of people that are kind of in my
Ooh, I
community.
love it.
You have to start, you have tour guides, right? You have
Yeah.
just a local individual who is an expert in their place and is sometimes working for a tour operator, but oftentimes they're a local independent professional that can be
Mhm.
booked by a tour, by a travel advisor. Um, Sometimes you might be booking them through Get Your Guide or Viator or
Sure.
Airbnb experiences or tours by locals,
Yeah.
with locals. A lot of those have very popular travel advisor programs because you get a little commission. They're easy to book. You can see availability. But in fact, all you're booking is a single tour guide.
Mhm.
The next level up of that is a day tour operator. A day tour operator will operate everything and anything from a walking tour or a hiking tour or a food tour. And what they're doing is creating experiences that you'll book to fill your customized itinerary for
Okay.
2 hours or 3 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours. Um, that that tour operator might work as a DMC when they are taking on much more of a logistical role in booking multiple days worth of things. So that's where you start to call it like a receptive tour operator or an inbound multi-day tour operator.
Okay.
All of these words basically mean the same thing, which is that you have somebody on the ground in a destination that is helping you put together a bunch of different kinds of experiences and pieces in a destination, but in Rome or in Calabria, whatever it might be. And so for for you as an advisor, they might provide the value of knowing a lot of different pieces of the puzzle that they can help you book, and then you are essentially getting a commission off of, off of their package price that they're offering to you. They'll give you a net rate, you add your commissions, and so on and so on. That's a receptive inbound tour operator or a DMC.
Okay.
DMC is a little bit more of a term that's often used in kind of like the corporate world.
Yeah.
And and then finally, you have the outbound multi-day tour operator. And an outbound multi-day tour operator might be, for example, my friend Cherry. She lives in Texas. Part of the time, she lives in Italy. And what she does is she books trips for clients that
Mhm.
are that will come to her as a group, or sometimes she puts together a group of people. She offers like a public tour, and then she designs trips all across Italy or wherever it might be, for people to fly over to her multi-city, multi-day trips. And often a multi-day outbound tour operator will have a dozen cities that they lead trips in, or not just cities, but paths, right, through a country,
Okay.
visiting several cities and several natural parts along the way, whatever it might be. And they're
Okay.
contracting sometimes with a DMC or locals on the ground, in order to
Okay.
be the local expert on the ground. So you can see very quickly it all gets very incestuous and very interconnected.
That I was gonna say because that outbound, the multi-day, I'm like, that's where I feel like there's a lot of crossover with travel advisors who are
Yes.
wanting to lead their own group trips.
Yes.
They market it as like their group trip, but they are using partners on the ground to get that done.
So the outbound multi-day tour operator and the group, quote unquote, travel advisor that packages for groups
Hmm.
is where the lines are blurring like
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and it's because she runs my Bella Vita Travel. She might have two people, uh, a couple come to her and say, "Hey, can you customize this pack, this tour for me?" And it's just us, and she's essentially there working as a travel planner or a travel advisor, utilizing all of her expertise to make that couple trip come alive. That couple might be bringing that couple might actually be leading a group of couples together for a group of 15 people.
Mhm.
And whereas the travel advisor doesn't really get your hands dirty so much with payments, like a tour operator lives inside pricing and payments because
Mhm.
they're not dealing with like somebody that packages everything together. They're like, all right, I gotta scout out these restaurants. I gotta pay those vendors I've got to pay the van company. I've got to pay the transportation from Florence to Venice. I've got to find a really great hotel. I've got to pay them, and then bundle all of that together, add my margins, and then start to sell
Right.
that to a group. So you might define the relationship as being a little bit different based on the messiness of pricing and payments.
Yeah.
But I see advisors getting into messy, messy planning, They're no
Yeah.
longer just planning. Planning to them doesn't mean I'll find this great tour operator or I'll find a Tauk or a Globus or a Colette tour and then I'll book my guests on that.
Yeah.
They're getting
Yeah,
their
because
hands dirty.
that's where the blurriness when it comes to more official items. So when it comes to like your terms and conditions, there's a little bit of blurriness. So you need to definitely talk with a professional there. And then definitely when it comes to E&O insurance, that's where premiums can go up if you're technically running the group. So I am not an expert, but I know really great experts who are actually going to be at Prep for Wave Week. So another plug there that you can talk with. But do you have any insights on your end too about that type of blurriness?
Yeah, basically you need tour operator insurance. And
Okay.
so it's many times the same it's the many times the same insurance company.
Right.
So for example, Berkshire Hathaway or Aon in the United
Yeah.
States, both are probably very well known to your audience as
Yeah.
creating travel advisor insurance packages. They also have tour operator insurance packages. And the difference really is just a difference of degree. You'll be paying more for tour operator packages because
Uh-huh.
you're carrying a lot of money in the balance. I mean, when you become a multi-day tour operator, you have millions of dollars in the bank, and you're in your booking software. You're the merchant of record. The transaction is happening with you. You're holding that money, and then you're going out operationally and spending it and writing checks. And you carry a little bit more risk, and you carry a lot of money, and so they generally charge you a little bit more also because you become responsible for the risk profile of the itineraries, right?
Mhm.
So you're going to not dangerous, but more exotic locations, riskier
Right.
locations.
Yep.
They're gonna make up a policy that's very customized to your business. And if you are, let's say, a hiking tour business where you take people, to Indonesia and Southeast Asia, or Kazakhstan or something, that's a little different than if you're running weekend trips from New Jersey nursing homes into New York City to go see Broadway shows, right? And
Mhm.
so,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it's full-fledged tour operator insurance, and
Mhm.
it's usually coming from the same companies because they know our industry.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So going back to, I guess, a little safer because it's a little bit more concrete what the differences are. What are some of the best practices? Because I know there's some qualms between both of our sides as to like tour operators having stickiness with working with travel advisors and travel advisors having stickiness with tour operators. So I wanted to kind of break down like what are the best ways to work on both sides so that it really creates not only like a lasting relationship, but also a really great experience that the clients actually asked for when they were doing that initial inquiry and discovery phase.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it qualms. I would just say we're in messy industries, and there's often misunderstanding and mistrust. And
Yes. Yeah.
And it's because you need relationships in order to establish trust, and there's a lot of hucksters on both sides, right? Or if not
Yep.
hucksters, um, not the right fit for who you are. And so,
Right.
you know, as a tour operator, and let's say like you're a tour operator that wants business. Every tour operator needs more customers, and the more expensive or the more involved your trip is, I've got, let's say, a 10-day trip to Cyprus, archaeological trip to Cyprus. It's a niche tour.
Mhm.
I am going to really lean on and want relationships with travel advisors to bring
Yeah.
me some customers because that's a hard trip to fill because it's a unique customer. Whereas you might actually have a customer that you know would love this because Frank comes from an archaeological background and his wife loves archaeology, and you can bring that. Now, that's a really great example where you need to know about each other, but
Right.
also these niche tour operators, they don't live in these multi-day spaces. They don't live on very many platforms. There's essentially one, Tour Radar. There's another
Uh-huh.
one which is Safari Booking, and they kind of are that's the kind of Safari platform. But
Okay.
for a lot of these companies, they just rely on direct web traffic or on relationships, which means
Okay.
you need to do searching outside of the platforms. My community really has a love-hate relationship with the platforms, like Get Your Guide or, in the day tour world, Get Your Guide or Viator
I
and Airbnb
remember. Yeah.
experiences, whatever. The love-hate is basically comes down to it's frustrating to have an intermediary that's taking 30% commission on every transaction of your tour. And then on top of that, they're um they're unsure of where the customer is coming from. It's hard to establish a relationship
Hmm.
because that customer is shielded or is unknown to the tour operator. The customer is really Viator's customer, for example.
Yeah. Right.
And so there's this weird dynamic where the best thing that you as a travel advisor could do is go direct to these tour operators. The problem with it is, of course, I understand that if you are out there booking lots of different travel for lots of different people, it is nice to have something that systematically pays you. You can trust it, and you can get all of your bookings handled in one place. But that is that is only a small percentage of the potential inventory out there, and a
Hmm.
lot of times the best ones are not on those platforms because they keep a pretty full customer base as a smaller company,
Hmm.
without needing to outsource sales to the digital platforms.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because I remember when we initially chatted, you had mentioned that tour operators would much rather work directly with the travel advisor than work with some of these larger corporations out there too.
They would, and it's just establishing trust on both sides.
Right.
And I think many people in my community, many of the operators that I work with, they need to make it easier to work with
Hmm.
travel advisors because sometimes they need to make payment flow, commission flow really easy. They need to make it as easy for your
Right.
community as Viator or as these other companies.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, though, not every operator advisor relationship is right. And sometimes there's mistrust of advisors because some of the people in my community have advisors that come and essentially want the local operator to do a lot of the planning work, and
Mm.
then don't see the booking ever come. And so
Okay.
there's this happens a lot in our industry. In my industry,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a sore spot. And so
Yeah.
understanding whether this advisor is going to be a good and trusted partner or whether they're just trying to milk the operator for information, is it can be a problem area, and that comes from our side of the industry not understanding all of the different types of advisors out there,
Hmm.
and the fact that there are a lot of new advisors coming into the industry that are popping up what feel like almost kind of fake travel advisor shops on the internet,
Yep. Yep.
and
Yep.
hard to vet. So
Yeah, and those are always popping up. I made a note because I definitely want to talk about that because I think that maybe not heal everything, but at least like get the perspective of like what type of homework should a travel advisor be doing before they get to the tour operator. But I also did want to mention because I know we had talked about there's not a lot of places for these smaller tour operators to be found. And two of the resources that I thought of, I immediately thought of like Lux Pages, but that definitely does have a more luxury side to things. So for people who aren't looking or who don't specialize in the luxury clientele, I still see like there is a need because I know like TA Toolkit is another one. I don't think they do operators. I think they do more resorts. Because then there's also a new technology out there called the Hive, and that like helps keep all travel advisors notes so they can say like, oh, this tour operator was really great. And it's something that you can kind of um it's almost like a brain space for a travel advisor to share their notes on who they've worked with. So I did want to share those. And then I also wanted to touch on the tech piece because I know that the whole payments and like communication with the tour operator back and forth, that is a huge part of like where the headbutting might happen. But I feel like that's kind of like technology companies, please help us out so that it's easier for the tour operators and the travel advisors to work together, to communicate, to pass money where money needs to be passed.
it's I think we're just living in a messy moment
Yeah.
where it's all improving and a lot of
Yes.
people are attempting to approve it.
Yeah.
But no one's gathered the whole market and no one's figured it completely out because it
Yes.
is messy. I want to give a shout out, for example, to Tour Radar, which
Hmm.
has built the largest multi-day tour
Okay.
aggregator or platform of thousands and thousands of tours, really great tour operators.
Okay.
Of course, they take a commission, but they've worked really hard to create an easy to use advisor backend and an advisor portal that allows an advisor to go in and establish those relationships and the communication, and it handles all of the payments and everything else on that multi-day tour level. And
Okay.
they've put a lot of effort into that. So they're doing a version of easing this communication flow from the
Uh-huh.
point of view of the fact that they have a huge amount of inventory of bookable tours. Now, the
Okay.
problem is that not everybody's on Tour Radar.
Right.
Not everybody will be on Tour Radar ever because one thing is, of course, they take a commission, and some people just don't have the margins to give 20% or 25% to a
Right.
platform and then whatever else to other, advisors and everything else.
Right.
Um, but also, this is what's kind of hard. The Sometimes the most interesting tours are the hardest to find because they're the smallest companies, and it's because
Right.
they do a specific thing extremely well. And
Yeah.
when you go to a company that services all of Morocco and does all different kinds of potential tours, then you're missing out on that women-owned hiking company that has the unique relationships with the indigenous communities that only let her in to lead the once of a lifetime small group women's travel experience that would be by far the best experience for your guest, but
Hmm.
that's never really going to be discoverable in these kind of giant ways, and that's where
Okay.
these giant platforms. Um, so I don't have an easy answer
Yeah.
because once like the places where the technology makes it easiest hide sometimes the smallest and the most interesting and the best things that are out there.
Hmm.
How do you solve how to gather together all of those small and unique ones? That's where I like what the Hive is doing. I think that's kind of sort of aggregating not bookable experiences, but the knowledge and sharing the knowledge amongst each other.
Right.
And this speaks to what's happening in our industry right now, which is that the tour operator software is starting to look more like travel advisor software, and travel
Okay.
advisor software is starting to build more towards
Yeah.
the tour operator software.
Yeah.
Um, Historically, we've had tools that make it really easy for our clients to pay us over multiple installments or to handle availability and manage tour guides and hotel relationships and payouts and all of that stuff. A
Mhm.
lot of the finances and then a lot of the organizations, but we haven't had the purpose-built CRMs to maintain client relationships over multiple months. We haven't had the email marketing automation to promote and connect with those customers over many times. We haven't had the itinerary builders to build out the custom proposals. But as we get more custom requests and we need to track the lifetime value of a relationship with the customer over multiple trips and everything else, we're getting the features you've had in your Travelifys and your Travel Joys and everything else, and you're getting the tools now that tour operators use to manage those custom relationships because you're being asked sometimes to build things that are quite creative, quite unique, and piecing
Right.
together lots of different components. So
Yeah.
that's at least
Yeah.
my read on it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm seeing this kind of merging of our worlds technologically.
Yeah, yeah, because I've seen at least on the Travel Joy side, I'm sure that Turn and Travefy, because I know those are some of the other big players. They have like a lot of communication tools now that you can communicate in one place with the tour operator and also like shared trip funds and things like that. But I also appreciate that you mentioned the whole part that there's these highly curated trips and like these smaller, unknown almost tour operators that you really do have to find, but it's kind of like a two-way street. The travel advisor isn't sure, like, can they put trust in this operator? And the operator then receives like five backup emails to be like, you could have just sent this all in an email and it could have gotten you this information in a couple days or a week or however long it might take. So I
I
know
know.
that that's one of the biggest, like when I say qualm, like the like a thorn in the side,
Yep.
that communication piece, like, oh, they're taking forever to get back to me, or I haven't heard from them, or now the client doesn't want this anymore. So on the travel advisor side, to help the tour operator better, and I'm also a huge proponent, like you're not supposed to be doing research through the tour operator. That is your job. You're supposed to have like a base minimum knowledge of whatever this trip might be that you need to plan for somebody so that you can go to the tour operator, tell them this X, A to Z, this is everything about my client that you need to know for this trip. I know there's this, is this feasible here? And so that you're able to like send over a great summary. I think of this almost like when we're working with AI, you can't just tell AI, write me a blog post for a safari in South Africa. You need to like put in as many details as possible so that the output that you get is chef's kiss.
Yep. Yep. I mean, you nailed it. It's clear communication
Uh-huh.
and detailed communication and not expecting that the tour operator is going to um is going to do more work than they can do because tour operators are all overworked, all
Yeah.
exhausted. And then also, I I establishing your bona fides, establishing, like trust by sharing the ways in which you've been in bit, how long have you been in business, making sure you have a good website or you have affiliations that
Hmm.
mark you as being vetted or something or even providing some references with people that they've worked. And I that's the advice that I give to my tour operators as well because we in our community, our operators would love to work with more travel advisors,
Yeah.
and the perpetual question is, where are they and how can I get in touch with them?
Yeah.
And the answer is everywhere and nowhere. And like, are they at conferences? Yes, but not just one and not all of them. Are they
Uh-huh.
online? Yes, but scattered in all sorts of random Facebook groups and WhatsApp
Yeah.
channels. Are they like, and different kinds of advisors live in different places and do different things. Ford doesn't have a monopoly. Signature, Virtuoso don't have monopolies. Like, um, I think also my community is particularly interested in the independent Wild West advisors out there that would make
Mm,
the best partners because,
yeah.
you know, some of my members can't pay tens of thousands of dollars to be a signature experience listed in Virtuoso and all of that. And
Right.
you know what I mean? Like some
Very
are
pay
and
to
some
play.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of people in both our communities that could benefit from each other just by
Yeah.
being visible and being vetted. And this is something I'm actively working on. So one of the things that we do is like we welcome advisors into our Facebook group. We have 20,000 tour operators in there. It buzzes all day long. But we have a growing number of advisors who come in, ask questions, learn. Sometimes are just asking for um, a certain company in a certain location. But then also we're building out a directory where we're going to have all of our 20,000 members and
Nice.
then invite in advisors to also have sort of like a B2B networking platform, almost like a LinkedIn for travel to help everyone find each other and then
Yeah.
vet each other in a B2B way, right? So you're not vetting each other through TripAdvisor reviews, which is only one way to vet, and it's
Yes.
usually, as you know, like not the best way.
Uh-huh.
But hearing that four other companies have worked B2B between, with each other, and you can see that you can see that
Yeah.
story there. I think will go a long way. We've just got to get each other talking more and discovered more.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned like credentials on the travel advisor side, definitely the CTA, VTA, and then AS or not ASTA. CLIA has their own like ACC, MCCs. So is there anything similar to those types of credentials on the tour operator side that travel advisors can look for when they're trying to find an operator?
Not really. So
No.
what? Well, there isn't a there isn't a credentialing process that a tour operator goes through.
Okay.
Um, at least one that is like nationwide. What
Okay.
are there? There are a lot of associations. So like
Okay.
there's ATA or ATTA, the Adventure Travel
Yeah.
Association.
Uh-huh.
There's the National Tour Association in the United States. There's SITA, the Student Youth Travel Association. Over in Europe, there's ETOA, the European Tour Operator Association.
Okay.
So believe me, there's associations everywhere for everything. But and what they do is like in many cases, those associations are sometimes putting up guarantees, right? That
Mhm.
like you need to prove that you have $1 million in liability insurance or whatever. Now it's probably 5 or 10 or
Okay.
whatever. But back there might be criteria so that when you do look at the members of those associations, you know that they're vetted and trusted companies that aren't going to disappear and shut off the lights
Okay.
overnight. But they're not going to give you the kinds of information from like reviews or testimonials or the kinds of things that might help you vet them on an experiential level because it
Okay.
doesn't mean that they are phenomenal tour companies like on an
Okay.
experiential level. It just means that they are real companies and they've got their ducks in a row. So
Okay.
so there's a lot of those. So long story short, there's a lot of associations that tour operators belong to, but those associations cover a surprisingly small number of tour operators that are out there. For example,
Okay.
NTA has a few hundred members, the National Tour Association, and those are really the older packaged tour companies that might be like Gate One Travel or kind of more medium sized package tours. But, you know, is there are there organizations that vet and collect and credential all of the day tour hiking companies or the tour guide companies or the tour guides or anything like that? No. I mean, the
There
closest you'll get
couldn't.
is it's just A, there's too many, B, it's
Yeah.
too fractured and diverse a landscape. And
Yeah.
so you do really need to rely on that kind of like trusted, trusted, usually word of mouth review. And that's where Tourpreneur is so valuable, is that within our group, within our community, you can go in and you can ask questions and you can get to know that that person exists within a community. We meet thousands of our members in person all year long. And so a lot of my role and a lot of our team's role, it's just also playing matchmaker for people that come to us and saying, listen, I've had beers with this guy in Dubrovnik. He does incredible service over there for luxury yacht multi-day experiences up and down the Croatian islands. You got to talk to Luxa or whatever it might be. So it's totally imperfect. I have big dreams for making it more perfect, but
Yeah.
it's a hard nut to crack for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And one of those places I know coming up is your event happening in November, Tour Week, where travel advisors and tour operators can meet up together.
That's one of the ways that we just think it happens. I find that I preach this all the time to my tour operators, which is build build your tours based on your partners, not based on the product that you want to build. So
Mhm.
option one is like, oh, you know what? My next tour is going to be Venice and Venice and the Dolomites because the Dolomites are hot or whatever. And oftentimes you lead with the customers and like, where do you want to go? Or for the tour operator who doesn't like necessarily maybe have that customer, but they're building for what they think is hot and what they think is going to be the next great thing. So
Yeah.
that's option one, and that's been the way that industry has always gone. Option two is to build based on an amazing partner that you find, and you find the right partner. Then you convince the client this is where you should go because confidently you can rely on them to put together an outstanding experience. So what we're doing with our conference called Tour Week is we this year are expanding it to include for the first time creators, advisors,
Nice.
guides, tour leaders, large tour operators, day tour operators, multi-day tour operators, all swimming a lot around in the same city, Charleston, South Carolina, in November, November 10th through the 13th, but with education that appeals to everyone because we're all experienced creators at the end of the day.
Yes.
Um, and and providing creative and endless opportunities for you to get to know and get to connect with the other people there because I think the strength of our industry is that word of mouth is those relationships. And so this is just going to be a relationship building conference. Yes,
Yep.
there'll be sit down meetings. There'll also be endless tours that you can take with other people. We just need to get to know each other as humans. I want
Yep.
advisors to get to know operators as humans. And then understand that Montenegro and South Africa and Hong Kong. Now you have a thick Rolodex of great people and great destinations that builds out your secret weapon as an advisor, which is you are discovering people outside of where everybody else is looking, and so you're able to turn around and provide a much more bespoke and much more unique product to your clients.
Yes, I love it. It's like the perfect official, unofficial, like networking event for everybody to like really converge together. I am hoping to be there right with you in November in Charleston. So, what's the best way for people to find more information on the event?
Yeah, so go to tourpreneur.com and you can see everything that we do. We do uh, in-person meetups for free all around the world every week. We're in some city. Your whole community is always welcome to come along, and it's for
Awesome.
anybody. And then join our Facebook group. Please don't be shy. It's the Tourpreneur Facebook group. There's only one. Come in, introduce yourself, get to know all of our people, and use us as a resource. And then tourweek.travel. I mean, you can find it on our website, but tourweek.travel is the event, and we
Okay.
will offer a special half price discount to your members. Your ticket is already only $99, so for $50, basically for two frappuccinos, you can come along and network,
Right.
enjoy some great parties, some great education, some great connecting, and a great city. Charleston, South Carolina is a magical city.
Yes, yes. And I think I heard on one of your podcasts that there's going to be a special party on an aircraft carrier.
We are renting out the USS Yorktown for the grand finale.
Wow.
And if I get the way and my team agrees, I want the theme to be Sassy Sailor. So,
I love that.
uh, but no matter what, it's an amazing place. And that's just it. Tour Week is meant to celebrate our experiences industry as by taking experiences.
Yeah.
And that means we have endless fun, free food tours, Jewish history walking tours, bike tours, boat tours that you can take all around Charleston to just see storytellers in action and get a sense of the city and feel alive again. I think a lot of us need that little spark just to keep going, and so this is
Yeah.
meant to also provide that for you all.
Love that so much. Mitch, thank you so much for being here, sharing a bit. I think this is going to give a whole lot of clarity between some of the differences and then also best practices for moving forward and working with and finding tour operators. Any last parting words before we jump off here?
Oh, if you go to tourpreneur.com and under like the more tab, I wrote a big long glossary of terminology that I share often with people.
Nice.
And I wrote it up and it explains DMC, receptive operator, tour leader versus tour guide. And I think as we all merge more in this industry,
Mhm.
it can be clarifying just to like understand that tour operator means three very different things to
Yeah.
different people, right? And so are you talking about it? Do you need a day operator in this destination? Do you just need a private guide? Do you need a multi-day outbound operator? Do you
Mhm.
need a inbound multi-day operator? Those are three very different communities of tour businesses.
Right.
And so I would just say diving into some of that terminology and getting clear will help you understand how to better connect with us and find the gems and find the best people hiding all around the world, in the unique corners and not just in the same places that all the other advisors are looking.
Yeah, I love that. Finding the hidden gems where the hidden gems are.
The hidden the hidden gem makers,
Yes.
the hidden gem makers who themselves are hidden gems.
Yes. I love that. This has been a really great conversation. I feel like this is a masterclass in beginning to work with tour operators. So thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait. We might have to do like a future episode on something related.
Absolutely. I am going to have you come on my podcast so you can do the same for my community for travel
Yay.
advisors.
Awesome.
And also maybe, yeah, maybe we'll have to do like a crossover episode live on an aircraft carrier if you make it to tour week.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, travel advisors. Well, I hope that this episode has been super helpful for you. We're going to link up some of those important places down below for you, and we'll see you officially in a couple of weeks, but you'll see the podcast coming up again next week, everybody. Bye for now. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Remember to check out the show notes for all relevant links and resources from today's show. See you next time.